curious thing has happened. Donald Trump is going to be the next US president, and it seems the world is healing. And one of the closest places to the United States, Canada, seems to already be undergoing this healing process before he's even assumed office. And it all starts with this, and this is a news story from the 30th of November. Trump praises very productive Mar-a-Lago meeting with Trudeau. And of course, this prompted this meeting because Trump had threatened to impose a 25% tariff on Canadian goods. And of course, Canada sends about 75% of its total exports to the US, and this would absolutely devastate the Canadian economy. And so it was significant enough that Prime Minister Trudeau had to come down and talk to Trump about it. And of this meeting, apparently they discussed many important topics, and Trump apparently wrote that this included fentanyl, illegal immigration, and trade. And this is, of course, significant as well because part of the reason that they were, Trump was putting forward this 25% tariff on Canada is that the sort of porousness of the border. And as this article from recently admits, Canada admits people can simply hop over US border as Trump demands crackdown. And of course, there's no use Trump cracking down on the southern border if your northern border is equivalently porous and people can just come in and hop the border. And even if he solved the Mexican border issue, which I think is a big ask in and of itself, if Canada is still a viable route to the United States, it will simply be the case that people will switch to go there. Because, of course, people like George Soros are flying in people to Mexico so they can cross the southern border. And go ahead.
What was interesting a few weeks after Trump was elected was that Justin Trudeau made an announcement that he is going to do a temporary halt on immigration and he is going to revise his immigration policy.
Mm-hmm.
So this is yet another element of what you're saying, that the world seems to be healing and how he is someone who is anxious about.
Yeah, I don't think he's necessarily had an ideological change of heart. It's just a pragmatic move to try and cling on to power by trying to appeal to people's concerns. But I think it's too little too late.
Too late for him, yeah.
I would say so. So what Trump is doing with this 25% tariff is that he's using the threat of the tariff as a bargaining chip. I'd be surprised if it got to the point where they actually implement this 25% tariff, although it is very effective as a bargaining chip, because if you either get what you want in the bargaining, or you can justify it by saying you're protecting American industries, and Trump's in a unique position to capitalize on that because he's sort of the candidate most associated with this notion of America first and protecting American businesses first, American jobs. He's been trying to hammer this rhetoric home, and therefore it helps him galvanise his support and build support further. And although, of course, he's not running for election again, it's still useful for him to have national support because it makes his life easier. And also, of course, Trump has introduced protectionist policies for things like American steel before, and so it's not even a baseless threat because he's not unheard of using these protectionist moves to benefit America. And so he's sort of got it both ways here, and Canada's in a bit of a bind about it.
I don't want to use a sort of a lefty, commie traitor talking point, but...
Uh-oh.
That border is ridiculously massive.
Mm-hmm.
And through insanely rugged country sometimes, because it's like essentially a straight line. It just cuts across mountain ranges and ravines and rivers and everything. So just physically, logistically, it'd be quite difficult to actually do that.
I think what's probably going to happen is that the United States is going to try and leverage its dominant position as world hegemon, basically, questionable perhaps, but they're going to try and get Canada to adopt a similar immigration approach as the United States will adopt under Trump. That's what's probably going to happen, because that way Canada will be in a comparable situation to the United States, in that they're not necessarily letting in hundreds of thousands of Indians like they're doing, although they're not necessarily the ones crossing the southern border because they can go the legal route. But if they're preventing, say, massive processing of asylum seekers, which Canada has a massive problem with, as well as the massive legal migration as well, then that's probably going to curb the problem. And America, just by merit of sharing a large border with Canada, is probably going to pressure them to reduce immigration by that route, rather than actually just building a massive wall.
Yeah.
Because that's the easier way of doing it, isn't it?
I know that there are a specific few bridges where nearly all people come across from Canada to America and back the same way. But if you really wanted to, if you wanted to go out to the Pacific Northwest and hike across the border, there will be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles where there's nothing there. It's just wilderness, really.
This is not immigration advice.
No.
Don't do that.
If you ever saw,
although it's good hiking, I imagine.
If you ever saw the Trailer Park Boys episode with the Swayze train and stuff, you can walk across the border.
I didn't think the Trailer Park Boys would be coming up this soon. In
talk
the
about Canada, I mean, come on.
Yeah, of course.
It's past you already, referencing them. No, so anyway, I wish Trump and the Americans all the best, of course.
And the Canadians. They've suffered through it quite a bit, haven't they, really?
Of course I do, yeah. Now, normal Canadian people had the absolute mickey taken out of them by Trudeau.
It's nearly 10 years now, I think, and very few people have good things to say about him.
I've got a decent amount of family out in Canada as well. But one thing Trump did say, and this is sort of old news, but it ties into current news, is the fact that Trump suggested Canada could become the 51st state after the tariff would kill the economy, which obviously he's joking, and lots of media outlets have pointed out that he's joking, which I found interesting as well, because normally people just take him at his word, but everyone's sort of like, okay, we know he's having a laugh here.
He's actually going to annex Canada. Do a false flag, claim they bombed the Baldwins.
And he has been running with it, but just from a rhetorical sense. So you can see here, this is a post that he made. It was a pleasure to have dinner the other night with Governor, notice he says Governor Justin Trudeau rather than Prime Minister, and he's trying to play off of the 51st state thing. And then he also said it again. I think this is the BBC picking it up on it, and here it is again. The great state of Canada is stunned as the finance minister resigns or was fired. This is foreshadowing to what I'm going to talk about in a minute. And by Governor Justin Trudeau is the important thing. So he's really going on about this. And the funny thing is that there has been polling, and 13% of Canadians think that Canada should become the 51st American state, which I'm surprised it's that high, really.
Yeah, it is surprising, but also one thing that I saw is that most Canadians have a much favorable view of Trump than Canadians. Or let me rephrase it, there is a larger number of Canadians who view Trump positively and Trudeau negatively than the opposite.
Okay, so they actually prefer Trump over Trudeau.
Yeah.
Well, fair enough.
Also, one thing I'd say is that there are, in Canada, there's sort of the English types and then the French-speaking types, aren't there? Like the French-speaking types, is it Quebec where they're
That's it, yeah.
They don't want to be part of the Commonwealth or have
well, of course not. No.
Have the king as part of as
there's
head
separatism,
of state
isn't there, in Quebec?
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
So would they want to go from having the king in Buck House as their head of state to the Prez in the White House? Probably not. They'd want to be their own thing entirely, I would have thought. Those people.
No, you're probably right. But apparently in this poll, where was it? It said, people in the Atlantic provinces, women and Canadians over the age of 55 were least likely to support it, which I thought was interesting. So men and young men in particular were most likely, seemingly, as that's the inverse of those figures. So it's also worth mentioning as well that the day before they were meant to release a budget or propose a budget, the Deputy Prime Minister resigned, who was also in charge of releasing the budget. And so then the position went to the Industry Minister, who then resigned on the spot.
What a coincidence. Why would they be resigning?
Is it that
well,
bad?
it might be something to do with this. Canada overshoots deficit target by 20 billion Canadian dollars as the Finance Minister resigns. That could have something to do with it, I imagine.
No way to to explain this on a CV afterwards.
Exactly.
That's pretty bad in the scheme of things, in the scheme of sort of cabinet government, to have your deputy and then your head of finance or whatever it was, the finance minister, who's the second person to resign.
Well, she was deputy and the head of finance.
All right, but then the next person down the line, they also resigned. You said.
Yep.
So that's pretty bad.
It is, isn't
That's
it?
really, really quite bad. That's decades ago, certainly a generation or two ago, you would just resign out of embarrassment, out of shame. That just shows your government is imploding. I doubt Trudeau will, because he's the type that until the WEF tell him he's allowed to resign, he would never resign.
Well, we'll get to Trudeau's situation in a bit, because it might be a case of just a sort of bit of foreshadowing here, where he might not have a choice. But with these things, there's always potential for alternatives. So we'll have to see about that. So it's worth mentioning as well. You shouldn't feel bad for this woman, because she was the one who smiled about bank accounts being frozen with the trucker protests. And then let's just listen to what she says about vaccine mandates.
Work. There are people in the country who just, haven't gotten around to getting vaccinated. Maybe they have some worries, sort of inchoate, amorphous concerns, and for whom having a practical reason why you need to get vaccinated is enough of a nudge to have them take this action. And actually, just last week when the Prime Minister and I were at a vaccination.
You get the idea. Obviously, we can't talk about this in detail because this is going on YouTube, but from a policy standpoint, this is a very authoritarian approach to this issue. That's what I think I can get away with saying. But we've got to be careful on that one.
But also, I don't think anyone feels bad for this woman.
No.
I
think we should be grateful that she's gone.
Yeah, I disagree with it. I don't see the point.
I think they're being a bit sarcastic there, to be honest. I don't think anyone feels particularly bad. And then
it's more that people are happy that Trudeau shows that he can run the government.
Mm-hmm. Also, here she is smiling about freezing people exercising their right to protest.
So you're confirming that accounts have been frozen, both personal and corporate, but you're not releasing the information. And the actual follow-up is, I'm just wondering whether the bank accounts will be targeted of individuals who donated to the Give, Send, Go and the GoFundMe campaigns. Are they considered designated people under the Emergencies Act, meaning that their credit cards could be...
You get the idea, right? I'm not going to linger on this for a long time. She's a bad person. I think that's fair to say, certainly from our perspective.
She's abandoning ship, but it was a ship that she really liked.
That's a very roundabout way of putting it, yes. And Donald Trump also... Yes, you can see the meme below as well. The great state of Canada is stunned as the finance minister resigns or was fired from her position by Governor Justin Trudeau. Here he goes again. Her behaviour was totally toxic and not at all conducive to making deals which are good for the very unhappy citizens of Canada. She will not be missed, which I thought was quite funny. So yes, it seems
Can I see
like...
the meme? Can you scroll down a bit? I want
Go
to
on
see.
then. Go on then.
Oh.
That's, of course, Trudeau's infamous blackface
The
incident.
deficit is like sand. It gets everywhere and annoys you.
I appreciate that, Stelios. So... Finally, they got someone to actually agree to the job of the finance minister, and it's this guy who is already the Minister of Public Safety and Intergovernmental Affairs and also has other obligations as well. And he's one of the few Trudeau loyalists left. And it's worth pointing out that 5 of Trudeau's cabinet ministers have stepped down in 2024. So it's pretty embarrassing for him. It's also worth mentioning as well, many of the current ministers have had to adopt 2 or even 3 different roles because there's such a shortage of people that want to be in the cabinet. I wonder why that is. Is it because they're so unpopular? I think it might be.
I don't know how he won the last election.
We can leave that question there, I think.
All right. Oh, was there fortification going on? Oh, right. Okay.
Maybe.
I didn't know that.
But it's also worth mentioning as well, there's a by-election going on in British Columbia, and this could potentially be something that spells the end. I know lots of people speculate and say, oh, Trudeau's going to be resigning. They've been saying that for the past year, and you see it ad infinitum, and this could be something that shows that they're really, really unpopular if they do particularly poorly. But we'll have to see. There has also been a little bit of pushback, and this is Ontario's Premier Doug Ford saying, we'll go to the extent of cutting off their energy, going down to Michigan, going down to New York State and over to Wisconsin. Americans are going to feel the pain as well, and isn't that sad? And that's in response to the threat of the tariffs. But
America sends in the Marines for less than that.
it does. It is asking for trouble. Stay safe, Doug. That's what I would say.
Not that I'm genuinely saying America's going to send in the Marines against Canada, but
No.
those are tough fighting words, and they ring hollow to me. As if Doug Ford is going to take on the United States.
No.
Single-handedly.
I mean, it's not that he's going to do this, but I think that there is something that is possibly good about it, that when you have people like Trump, you have to speak their language because they may respect you more.
Fair point. No, it's a fair point.
Yeah,
Trump's playing brinkmanship with rhetoric, and he's doing the same back. Fair enough.
No, just an idea, just throwing it out.
Yeah.
I don't think it will necessarily come to this. You know, a lot of the time, diplomacy between the US and Canada, there are strong words, but actually they get along pretty well, and it's pretty amicable a lot of the time. And normally conclusions can be met.
There's also a pancake and maple syrup. And
You're making me hungry, Stelios.
I am hungry.
I love pancakes and maple syrup.
Last time the Americans did try to invade Canada, it didn't work out too well for them.
That's true, actually. Yeah,
in 1812.
Fighting words.
had a bit of help from us lot, didn't they? I don't think we're going to get involved this time. So
I think they've got a better military nowadays as well.
I would say so. So obviously, the head of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, has called for a no confidence vote against Trudeau because of all of this. That is to be expected. You know, the opportunity is now to call for these sorts of things, and he is doing it. And also,
He'll be their next leader, probably, right?
Most probably,
yeah.
Okay.
I have my reservations about him, but
I don't know much. I've seen a few clips of him, and he seems all right, but I don't actually know much detail. Fake based.
Sort of centre right.
Okay.
Sort of a little bit of milquetoast, perhaps a bit of a continuity, but slightly less bad than Trudeau, that sort of thing, right?
Okay.
We know the type in Britain, don't we? We got
I like
10 a penny.
I like how you always have your reservations, and frequently you're right.
Thank you. I appreciate
I mean, we have to say it.
My cynicism is my defence mechanism against disappointment against the world, and I'm quite often disappointed. Also, the leader of Canada's New Democratic Party, Jagmeet Singh, was also calling on Trudeau to resign. He's going to be the sort of new favourite of the left, I imagine, because of course he's trying to flank them from the left, as far as I'm aware, at least.
Is he saying that Trudeau is far right? He is.
I don't think it's got quite to that point yet. But outlets like Visegrad was saying Justin Trudeau will likely be forced to resign. Announcement could come within a few hours, and this was more than a few hours ago. And lots of people say this sort of thing. I'll believe it when I see him handing in his resignation and addressing the nation. Until then, I think it's difficult to say. However, things aren't necessarily looking that good for him, because you can have a look at other outlets like the BBC, for example. Trudeau in peril after Trump spat sparks political crisis. That's pretty strong terms for an outlet that would be sympathetic towards him. And even CNN, Justin Trudeau is facing a political crisis made worse by Donald Trump. Can he survive as Canada's leader? And even the fact that these mainstream outlets are asking these sorts of questions puts it on the agenda, doesn't it? And makes people lose confidence in him as leader. If everyone's asking, so when are you resigning? It makes the possibility of someone resigning more, even if they were not inclined to do so in the first place.
My feeling is, in recent times we've had someone like that Ardern woman in New Zealand.
Jacinda Ardern, yeah.
Or Justin Welby, the Archbishop of Canterbury. These people resign without too much pressure. Everything I know about Trudeau is he's not like that. He's more like a Gordon Brown person. will never resign. I've said it before. Will never give up on the game until it gives up on him.
It's the last limpet on a sinking ship, right?
Will hold on tooth and nail to the last possible moment. That's my feeling about Trudeau. Unless he's removed by legitimate means, by parliamentary means, he won't just resign because there's loads of headlines about it. That's my feeling. I could be wrong. That could age terribly.
I actually agree with.
He could be resigning right now, for all I know. But I suspect he won't.
I agree with what you say, and I think your read of his character is correct. However, with his inability to fill cabinet positions, if enough of his cabinet turns on him, it's pretty much over, right?
Yeah.
Because he won't be able to run a functional government, and then you've got to hold your hands up and say, okay, well, there's nothing I can do now. I'm gonna have to resign because I'm forced to, and I think that would be the means in which Trudeau will leave. I think
that would be a bit more honest on his part, and also it would be better for his party, because he is someone who has governed for 9 years. People aren't happy with him. It doesn't seem that he has a lot on his CV to show positive. So if there are, maybe he should just resign as a leader and give it to someone else fast. I don't know.
It's also worth mentioning one of the most prominent Canadians in the world has recently announced that they're going to leave Canada because of the tyranny of the Canadian government. And of course, Jordan Peterson is actually, even in Britain, a household name these days. Everyone sort of knows who he is. And if someone this prominent says that they're leaving, and he says, and this is a direct quote, "The new legislation that the Liberals are attempting to push through, Bill C-63, I'd just be living in a totalitarian hellhole if that legislation passes, and it could well pass." And this is talking about the Online Harms Act, which is similar to what we have in Britain. But and this is a quote from the federal government, "It contains a variety of measures to address a range of harmful content online, as well as hate speech and hate crimes both online and offline." And we know that this doesn't work, obviously. We're not in favour of any of this sort of thing. And it's enough to put people off, because there are plenty of prominent examples in Britain of this having a backfire effect. And it could be the death knell for Trudeau's Liberal Party, I think. And so it's positive news for once about Canada. Well done, Canada. Things are going well for you. And it is thanks to an American election. I don't know whether that makes it better or worse, but I hope you have a nice Christmas and you can feel a little bit better about your future. I hope you appreciate that segment from the podcast to the Lotus Eaters, and if you want to see what else we're up to, you can always watch us have fun on our Lads Hour series on the website. This time we were playing GeoGuessr. We got some great guesses there, really good streak as well. And if you want to see all the other things that we put out, you can always follow us on Twitter. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.